Okay, we're going to move on to a slightly different type of topic now.
Ever since we
I have no idea how this is going to go. I'm going to be honest. So this is Neil deGrasse Tyson. For those unaware, I'm kind of a science nerd to some extent. I watch a lot of like stuff about the edges of science, like particularly like black holes and like quantum stuff and all that sort of shit. I watch a lot of that when I'm going to sleep a lot. I think I've picked up a decent amount of like pop science knowledge from it or whatever. I don't necessarily watch Neil deGrasse Tyson that much because I think he comes off a little bit fake to me in terms of like how how he presents stuff. I think or like maybe a little bit like egocentric in a way or whatever. But this I thought might be a good kind of mix of both both of those two subjects. So I saw this video. I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. We're going to see what Neil deGrasse Tyson has to say about war in this video called "A Scientist View of War." Let's see. I don't know if he's gonna have very good opinions. Oh, sorry, I did want to say one other thing. I think that scientists tend to not have a very good understanding of politics and not have a very good understanding of like, systems and like modes of production and like resource extraction and like all of these various things that go into war because they're too focused on doing all the, hard science shit that they have to do. Um, that's generally what I think, but who knows? Maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson will surprise me. So let's see what he has to say about war.
we've recorded the history of human conduct in what we call civilization and even before, there have been people
Great
who
voice.
didn't get along on a level where it wasn't simply a matter of let's talk over our differences. It's we cannot resolve our differences, so therefore I must kill you. This as a mode of operation within our species, within civilization itself, is disturbing.
Disturbing, but already I saw a little thing that's a little iffy in terms of framing it as like not getting along or whatever, as opposed to the main purpose of war, which is resource extraction. But you know what? Hey, I only gave him 37 seconds so far, so we'll see what else he has to say. This is a
So let's go
badass
way
title
back
screen,
when
though.
it's just fisticuffs. What's the most damage I could do? I can, like, maybe harm one person, possibly kill one person at a time. Now I have a bow and arrow. I'm one person and I can take out 10 people at a time. Notice this ratio is getting steeper and steeper. I now have a gun. Actually, it's a musket gun initially. I could take you out at 50 yards. I don't even know what you look like and I can kill you. Then I have automatic weapons. One person can take out 20 people. You reload, take out another 20. A missile. You fire a missile. I can take out hundreds of people. War continues to, quote, advance. What else can I have? Oh, bombs. Yes. So now one person can kill.
So he's just talking about destructive capabilities going up, which is a natural thing that happens with the progress of technology.
Thousands. Once you have an airplane, you can fly over someone's head. It renders the trench warfare obsolete. Airplanes can go over cities, you drop bombs on people's heads, whether or not they're combatants. So now you just make more and more powerful bombs. Now the bombs are no longer just explosives like with gunpowder or anything. It's nukes, nuclear weapons, a birth at the end of the Second World War. Now, one person flying an airplane can kill tens of thousands, even millions. Tens of thousands initially with the atom bomb. These are the fission bombs that split uranium and plutonium atoms into lighter atoms, releasing energy in the process.
Had to throw
Those
a
were the
little
two
science
bombs
in
over
there.
Nagasaki.
He had to throw a little science in there before he got into the real sad shit.
And Hiroshima. The
Yeah.
first
The,
and only two times nuclear weapons were used in warfare.
the worst war crimes of all human history.
The bombs over Nagasaki and Hiroshima were like
Individual.
20 kilotons, something like that. Kilotons. What unit is that? Oh, huh. We don't have a way to measure the energy of atomic bombs, so you measured in terms of what the previous explosive powers were. TNT. TNT's dynamite. Discovered by Alfred Nobel, by the way, got rich, put in money to create the Nobel Prize. Kilo is 1,000, we all know. Ton is a ton. 1,000 tons of TNT. Not just one stick of dynamite, thousands of tons. You take that, ignite it in an instant. You incinerate everybody below you. And we have magnified the power of that weapon by 100. We call them hydrogen bombs, just the way the sun makes energy, taking hydrogen atoms, bringing them together.
I do wonder what the future of like weaponry could be. Like I wonder if there's any like sort of quantum shenanigans that could happen, or like matter antimatter collisions or something. I don't know. I am curious if there's going to be like a level of destructive capability above these types of like fission bombs or whatever.
Together to make helium atoms. That also releases energy, way more energy than you'd get by fissioning heavy atoms. No longer is it kilotons,
you know what I mean.
It's megatons. Not just thousands of tons of TNT, millions of tons of TNT. Now, one person who pushes a button or has a rocket to deliver ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles. I can sit here in the comfort of my chair, control a missile on my sovereign land. It'll enter suborbital because it leaves our atmosphere. It can't travel that far without resistance through the air. It leaves our atmosphere, goes its distance, comes back out of the sky, hits its target. You can kill 1 million people. Clearly, that's a highly unstable situation, because now we are beholden to the sanity of anyone who has access to that button. Given the neurodiversity of our species, not everyone has the rational capacity to make a decision that would be in the interest of the world's health, wealth, and security.
That is true. However, the systems and morality that we have just generally create things like taboos and stuff um, that make it much more difficult for people to say, like for a madman to say, just press the button. Like if we had a truly Mad King situation who was about to press the button for like no goddamn reason, I kind of think that if the military, if the entire like military chain of command didn't like, or State Department didn't like see it as beneficial to the nation state that it's representing, that they wouldn't allow it to go forward. And that's because these actions are never really individual per se. They're all structural. They're all based on these structures that we create and the goals that we have set them out to do. So that's kind of my thoughts on that, is that I don't necessarily even think like a Mad King type situation would ever be able to do that particularly. Personally.
I'm old enough to remember MAD, mutual assured destruction. It was the realization that if there's a first strike, while the weapons are airborne, spaceborne, while they're leaving the atmosphere, that's enough time for you to launch your weapons.
It seems like that is true, though. It seems that like a nuclear umbrella is like the only possible way of having sovereignty at this point. We've kind of learned that over the recent history, is that if you go the North Korea model, where you just try to build nukes as fast as you possibly can, and then you attain it, then you won't ever get fucked with by America, and like you can just sit there and like peacefully like live in your country and not just get like, I mean, yeah, you might get sanctioned to shit by America regardless, but yeah, you're never going to have America just start like, destabilizing you or killing your leader or whatever if you acquire nukes. So we are kind of learning that like this whole mutually assured destruction does give you a sort of umbrella, which is why I keep saying China just send one little nuke over to Iran, and then we can finally have peace in the Middle East. That's all it would take.
Country wants to really get at you, they'll attack you and your allies. So now everybody starts launching weapons. If you have total nuclear exchange and you ignite the forests and the vegetation of the world, this converts living plant tissue into carbon soot that goes into the air, blocking sunlight. This was the famous nuclear winter that was described in the early 1980s. Computing power was just becoming good enough to address the question of what happens if you darken the skies all around the world. The temperature of the Earth drops. Plants that depend on sunlight die.
See, this is all like, okay, this is all kind of like fun stuff to like think about, I guess, or whatever. Or not really fun, I guess, but not stuff that I'm particularly interested in, I guess. Like these, I mean, like, or I guess not what I'm really trying to get out of this, I guess, is that I'm trying to see what his thoughts are in terms of like I maybe this next section will be a little bit better, but like how he thinks wars happen or why they happen or like that sort of stuff. Or even like this section scientists' role in war and like that sort of stuff. But I'll let it play though just to see you know what scientists think about, I guess, when it comes to
Animals
this.
that depend on plants die. Animals that depend on animals that depend on plants die in sequence. And you have nuclear holocaust, not only affecting Earth life, but plant life and other animal life as well. The nuclear winter scenario, it assumed that the weapons would be equally distributed on Earth's surface. That's generally not how this works. If you're launching nukes, you're going to launch it at the missile silos that might have other nukes that haven't launched yet. And you're going to launch it towards cities with multiple nukes coming into the same city. So you won't get the spread that initial calculation had presumed. But what it did do was birth an entire science of long-term climate modeling from assaults on the environment. And out of that, we got to have great confidence that the dinosaurs were taken out by an asteroid the size of Mount Everest that struck the Yucatan Peninsula off of Mexico, cast dust into the air, plunging Earth into darkness, rendering 70% of all species of life on Earth and in the ocean extinct. The world quickly realized how deadly this is.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What's that in the background there? Does Neil deGrasse Tyson have a nuke back there? Dude, he's like, if anyone tries to get me, I got him. I'll get him right back. It's mutually assured destruction. If Bill Nye ever comes for me, I'm gonna get him right back.
It's not just a bow and an arrow. It's not just fisticuffs. It is an asymmetry in warfare that had never been seen before. I'm reminded of a quote from Albert Einstein. I don't know how World War III will be fought, but I know that World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. That's where war and the science of war has taken us. Scientists...
I'm not so sure. I think that a nuke may be deployed at some point by a country that is maybe structurally more tempted to do so, and by that I mean Israel. I do think that Israel's entire political system is fervent with like the most racist like Nazi ideology shit that like would be willing to like literally like do that shit like as the entire like structure organization if they thought that they were like actually in trouble, or if Iran was hitting them too hard or something. Um, I don't know what would come out of that if they did decide to do that, but I don't necessarily think that it would be like an instantaneous like uh setting off all of the like like I don't think China's gonna then nuke Israel or something if they did that shit. Um, However, I do think that it would create enough of a like unilateral political pressure to put like to end that shit that like that Israel might be, diplomatically a little bit fucked or whatever. So I don't really like I guess what I'm saying is I don't necessarily think it's like once one goes off they all go off sort of situation. And inherently it depends on who the one is and who they're targeting. Like Israel isn't going to target a nuclear armed nation. Israel isn't going to um, send a nuke at like what does Pakistan have nukes? I can't remember. I think so. Like at Pakistan or something. Like because like they know that they would just get nuked right back or whatever. So um, yeah, I don't know. That's the only situation where I think a nuke will be deployed is if it's against an unnuclear armed nation, and I think that the diplomatic fallout of that might be bad enough to make it like not a good call. I think that strategically not a good decision.
Have historically been complicit in the waging of war. Governments, be they warmongering or otherwise, have always reached for the ingenuity and creativity of scientists and engineers of all stripes. Where do you get chemical weapons from? You go to the chemist. Bio warfare, you go to the biologist.
Well, that's where most of their funding comes from. Most of their funding is to develop like war shit. Like to be honest, there's not a lot of funding for science that isn't like specifically for like for war war technology or whatever.
The astrophysicist, we don't make bombs, we don't know, but we care about multispectral imaging in dark places. We care about coordinates on Earth and in the heavens. We care about timing. What is a physicist an expert at? It's matter, motion, and energy. And what is a military battle of any kind? I have energy over here, and I want to put it over there.
Yeah.
It could be I have a bullet here sitting in my gun, but I want to put that bullet over there with energy that I give it. I have a bow and arrow. I pull the string, pumping potential energy into the bow. When I let go,
sure, dude. Sorry, this is the stuff that I'm like, I wish you would talk about the stuff that I find interesting. I understand that like it's, it's just it seems like kind of a little shoehorny or whatever.
springs
But
forward,
whatever.
the arrow goes, sending kinetic energy.
Why doesn't he just listen to my YouTube channel and know exactly what I want him to talk about? Is what I'm saying, basically.
Over here to over there. That is the basis of essentially every military conflict. There is no war that is won without the exploitation of science and technology at its center. A little bit about me and my history. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. All I ever knew was the Vietnam War. I grew up in an era where war is bad. War is bad.
Yeah.
How could war ever be good?
It still
But
is.
meanwhile, I'm still observant, and I look around town, and there's statues to war heroes, military servicemen standing proud.
Yeah, propaganda.
And I said, how is it that I could think war is bad where apparently at all these other times, not the time coincident with the Vietnam War, but at all these other times, war was commemorated with pride and, dare I say, even celebrated.
Yeah, because every previous war is good, or like we whitewash it to some extent, like especially the ones that have like militarily achieved the goals of, like I always say, our pedo billionaire overlords or whatever. And I guess all of them to some extent have, but we glorify the ones that like have a clear victory or whatever. I guess we just kind of throw the others in the dustbin though. Like I think a lot of people just don't even really think about Vietnam and how we lost that war. They don't even really think about how we lost the Iraq war, or the Afghanistan war. Um, so, but yeah, the current war is always unpopular though, in general. Like especially nowadays, as America is no longer able to like win wars. Like the current war always becomes more and more unpopular as time goes on. So he's just kind of looking at the propaganda that's set up to make everybody like think about war as some good thing to sacrifice for, but then comparing it to the actual feelings of the people who have to endure it or whatever, which is it's a good contradiction to recognize.
That's what kind of Memorial Day and Veterans Day is all about. You are celebrating those who fought in wars and commemorating those who died in wars. This is a celebration, a recognition. Whereas in the Vietnam era, there was none of that. So that's where I was forged. My sense of war was forged. But my rational mind was saying, what is the rest of this about? There are occasions where, yeah, war is necessary. A bad actor rises up whose interests do not comport with what we might think of as civilization.
Uh-oh. I don't like those words. um, I war. Okay. We'll see where he's going with this. Unless he's talking about like another country like starts invading all of the surrounding countries or something. Like if he's not talking about like Germany or something, or like like sometimes you can wage a war on behalf of other countries, I guess. And that can be good and just or whatever, like fighting the Nazis or whatever. But in general, war is never good. Like wars of like, if you are ever doing the first strike of a war, you're bad, you're evil, you're wrong. You should not have done that. Under all circumstances. So like even if the person is purportedly your enemy, like let's say I don't know, North Korea or something for us, like going to war with them just because they're your enemy like is bad and wrong. Like under all circumstances. So yeah.
The preservation and prolonging of civilization as we have built it and as we have come to embrace it.
As long as he doesn't say Western civilization, Jesus Christ.
Easily, who comes to mind, of course,
Okay.
is Adolf Hitler.
See,
Yes.
this is why I was like, I don't want to go too hard on him yet, because he might just be talking about Hitler.
There are times when you are fighting evil forces, but you have to ask who defines who's evil.
Good question.
In starting and making a war, not the right is what matters, but victory.
That's true.
The strongest has the right.
It's hard to argue against the idea that to protect freedom is a good thing, and the fact that freedom isn't always free. It reminds me, I saw a comic long ago where two people are
Protecting freedom, like protecting our freedom, sure. Like if you want to defensively protect your country with freedom, then sure. That's a good thing. If another country ever was insane enough to try to invade America, I would be all for protecting our country from that invading force. The problem is we never do that in America. I can't even remember the last defensive war that we have ever fought, unless you count Pearl Harbor. Like honestly, it's insane. Like we are always fighting wars of aggression outside of our country. So like, and that is never for another country's freedom. We are never going to Iraq to liberate someone, or we are never going to Afghanistan to liberate someone. We are always going there to extract resources from them. That is what every foreign war has always been about.
facing each other with a bow and arrow pointed right at each other's necks. And each one says at the same time, the harder I pull, the safer I feel. It's like, really? As a scientist, when we disagree with one another, we might argue our case vociferously. Some people are a little more emotionally invested in their ideas than others.
Hey, have you ever tried have you ever tried when someone has a different thought about like how the how quantum physics works? Have you ever tried just killing that person though? Something tells me your argument would win if you just went out and killed the other person.
So it can get heated, but at the end of the day, you know what we say to each other? We need more data. When more data come in and then it resolves the conflict, then we agree, go out, have a beer, and then move on to the next frontier question.
Right now.
That's the brain wiring of a scientist. It's not the brain wiring of politicians or many other sort of sectors of society where...
Okay. Scientists are not some mythological being who are outside of the realm of politics or outside of the realm of our, structures and stuff. Like they are very much a part of that. And there are many scientists who are like vehement or like incredibly like reactionary and racist and stuff, or like incredibly reactionary and like warmongery and like ready, like they're not exclusively thinking in the realm of like logic and like I don't know, they're not like computer programs or something, like so sometimes I don't really like when people frame scientists as some like objective arbiter of like right or like of like neutrality or something when it comes to these things.
They need to interact with others. I've had some exposure to military operations. Now, I never served in the military, not as a soldier, but I did serve on a board of the Pentagon, the Defense Innovation Board.
That's not
It was
good.
an attempt to alert the military that the strength in armies going forward, the strength of nations going forward, is not measured by how many soldiers are on the ground. It's not even necessarily measured by how many nukes you have in your silos. It could be measured by how clever you are with either computing or calculations or strategies that come from a place that's not just how big is your weapon.
I mean, okay, yes and no. The smart person will obviously win more often than not, like, or whatever, right? The people with better strategy will win, but it's not like the more computing power you have, you're going to win. Like, America has like 1 billion data centers or whatever, right? Like we have so much data, like we don't even know what the fuck to do with it all, Like, and Iran has like not nearly as much compute technology or whatever, but they have better strategy because they are thinking of it as an asymmetric warfare like model, and they are able to, and I always say this again, they're able to outproduce us. That's I guess you could think of that as a compute problem maybe, but it's also a will and a political problem as well that are firmly outside of the realm of like compute capabilities or whatever, like his ideas on like back then at least of what would win wars. So yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
You look at the reasons why people have fought wars over the years.
Resource
A common
extraction.
one is access to limited resources.
Yep. The only one.
I want what you have.
The only one. The only one. That's the only one. There's no other reason people go to war. That is the only reason.
I need what you have. Oh, you're not going to share it? You're not going to give it to me, therefore I'm going to take it.
Every other war that they say is a holy war or whatever, like a war of two civilizations who are just different and don't see eye to eye, it is always resource extraction. Every single time, 100%.
Well, you can only do that. You can only threaten to do that if you have the resources, the financial resources, the scientific resources, the engineering resources. Other reasons why people fight: limited access to resources, yes. Religion. Again, I come to it as a scientist. If there's a batch of scientists over there
No,
who say
no, no,
E doesn't equal MC squared,
no.
E
Sorry, no. It's not. It's just not. It's not. Religion is a tool. It is a tool used by people to, to facilitate the, like, to facilitate the resource extraction. Like, it is always resource extraction, no matter what. Like, point to a war. Like, it's resource extraction. That's what it always is.
equals MC cubed. Are we going to go to war over that? No. I would say, no, let me show you why that is not true. And I would demonstrate it with experiments and examples. That doesn't work as well when you have belief systems. If you come from a belief system, then what you believe doesn't have the evidence that science would normally require to establish what is objectively true.
Okay.
That's why they're called belief systems, because you believe that something is true. Now, you may believe it so strongly that you know it's true, but that's an internal emotion that you carry.
He's kind of given a little bit of religion bad vibes here, which I'm not really a fan of personally. I think it's a kind of pointless thing to like. Yes, I am like agnostic or whatever, but I don't really see any use for like being like religion bad. I think you can talk about religion as a tool to either be used for good or for bad, depending on the circumstance. But
Belief systems are such that it may be true for you, but it's not really true for other people unless you convince them of it. And since it's based on belief, rational arguments tend to not work. You need methods of coercion or force.
yeah, but
Ultimate.
this one I very vehemently disagree with. There's never every single quote unquote holy war has always been about resource extraction. It has been those people have things that we want and we are going to use religion like even like if you think about like the crusades or something, like the most holy war thing that has happened in the past, it was we want the resources over where we want, that city over there, we want that land over there, so we're going to start sending these marauding groups of fanatics to go out and try and take it or whatever. um it it is always about resources, and when I say resources, that includes land. Okay, like, so like when it's like a war over territory or land, that is like about resources as well.
Threat of violence, perhaps even threat of death. And so some of the most violent encounters civilization has ever had with itself is when one warring faction has a belief system that differs from that of their adversary. It's interesting to ask of ourselves in society, is there anything you would die for? You get one chance in life. What I have found is that the less...
My answer would be the things that I would die for are the people. Like I would die for other people. That's my answer. I would die to protect the marginalized. That's what I would do. I would die to protect those who have less power than me or whatever, or those who would be more likely to die if I didn't put my life on the line. That would be my answer.
tangible the thing is you're fighting for, the more abstract it is, the less evidence there is in support of it, the more willing people are to die for it. And so war always seems to be this glorious thing at the beginning, and then the body bags start coming back. And
Well,
not only military...
true, but this is a very American perspective. That's because all of our wars are wars of choice. Like, the people in Iran do not think about the body bags coming back or whatever, or the cost of this war. And the reason is because they are in a defensive posture and they will be wiped out, or they will be like genocided if they do not, survive this or whatever, if they do not like sufficiently damage America or the American economy or whatever. Americans, yes, are very sensitive to these images of like bodies coming back from overseas wars, and that's because we're the aggressors, and any cost, especially for an unpopular war, any cost is too high or whatever.
casualties.
Even as minimal as they are. Like we've only had 12 deaths so far for from an American perspective against Iran at the time that I'm recording this, and Iran, I think, has had over like 1,000 already. Um, but they're not sensitive to that because they understand that they are, they're waging a defensive war to protect their land and protect their territory. We're very sensitive to it because we are not. Now, if another country came in and started bombing us, set up some like naval like started invading our country from like New York or something or whatever, like let's say China decided to just like they decide to land on the coast of Florida and start waging war on the United States and trying to take over our territory. I'm sure that a lot of people would die trying to protect our land or whatever. We wouldn't be nearly as sensitive to those deaths in that particular circumstance. That sensitivity comes from the fact that we are waging a war of choice and a war of aggression.
But civilian casualties, just trying to live their lives, who are now susceptible to decisions made by people in power, who generally are not themselves the same people who go do the fighting. I find that dismaying, just being human in civilization as a scientist.
It is dismaying, but those people are our representatives. They do represent the broad swath of society. If this war that we are currently waging against Iran was so offensive to the American public, then they would rise up like in arms to like stop it or whatever. But they're not because it's not that offensive to them. It's not nearly as offensive to them as I personally think it should be.
But it's real and it happens, and that's how the world is put together. With or without the League of Nations coming out of the First World War, with or without the United Nations after the Second World War, with
What's
charters that are signed,
Hey,
Geneva Convention.
hey. He forgot one. He forgot the Board of Peace, okay? Come on now.
The end of the day, you can ask the question, can we just all get along? Let me end on a slightly more positive note. All the UFOs people have been seeing.
Hey, I got a solution here, okay? And I know that I don't know. I don't really know what Neil deGrassi's Tyson or whatever is his opinions are on modes of production and Marxist analysis of material conditions or whatever. But I do think there is a way that we can all get along, and that is when our productive capabilities lead to so much. To having so much, everybody being able to produce so much and have it distributed so widely and so easily and so availably that we no longer even need nation states. Now this would be the end goal of communism, by the way, which I don't foresee happening anytime soon, like at least another 400 500 years if I had to guess, maybe 1,000 years, who knows. But yes, there are modes of production that we can use that will facilitate more resource distribution to more people, that will lead to less resource extraction for the super profits of our pedo-billionaire overlords. We never see the fruits of war as citizens in this country or whatever. Our pedo-billionaire overlords, they do. They see a lot of those profits. So if we organize society in a way such that it is impossible for those people to continue accumulating infinite profits from and extracting infinite resources from the third world and from the middle and lower powers in the world, then we can maybe start moving towards a society that may one day no longer have a need for nation states and may no longer have a need for borders, and we can enter that utopian vision of Star Trek of a classless, stateless society. But that's just me. That's my thoughts as a crazy commie. Sorry, Neil deGrasse.
In the sky, lights that we can't explain. I'm glad some part of the military budget is going to investigating them, because people have been seeing them for decades. I've never seen anything that I couldn't identify. Okay. I know a lot about weather and climate and sky conditions.
Okay, I don't give a shit about UFOs. I'm sorry. UFOs are all just psyops to get people vaguely talking about something else other than what's currently going on. So, okay, Neil, You know what? I think we got some good out of that. I really do. He discussed it. I was really glad once we got about past the halfway point, where he started talking more about the political dynamics of stuff. And I think that he was wrong on a lot of stuff, but right on some stuff. And I don't necessarily expect our scientists who are so busy throwing all of their hundreds of millions of brain cells into the depths of what we can find out in this universe, and keeping one of those fingers on the button to shoot this nuke at Bill Nye if he ever gets out of line or whatever. um, so I don't necessarily expect them to understand all of these things in the same way that like I do, or of course my beautiful big-brained audience does. So um, but I do think it's fun to get a different perspective every once in a while. So thank you, Mr. Neil deGrasse. I loved it. And your voice is beautiful. Keep it up. Way better than mine. I don't know why people listen to me.